students. Senegalese presidential candidates launched their shortened campaigns 2 days after a court confirmed the election will be held on March 24th, ending weeks of uncertainty and kickstarting a competition that remains wide open. And meet a woman entrepreneur tackling hunger and empowerment through fishery in Nigeria. Watch Wild of Africa at these times, only on WION World is One.
Good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're watching World DNA with me, Raisha Segu. On the show today, Israeli negotiators head to Qatar for a new round of ceasefire talks amid intense new efforts to bring the war in Gaza to a temporary halt. And this is after Hamas abandoned key ceasefire demands. The question being, what are these demands? And are hopes for a ceasefire brighter this time? We will be tracking all of that on World DNA, but first, the headlines. India now officially in election mode. Model Code of Conduct for political parties kicks in after Election Commission announces a 7-phased national election from April 19th to June 1st. Counting of votes on the 4th of June. Indian Navy to the rescue again. Indian Navy warship recaptures hijacked carrier MV Ruin from Somali pirates. Over a 40-hour operation, Indian Navy men corner and coerce all 35 pirates to surrender and safely evacuate all 17 crew. Israeli negotiators, including the intel chief, are heading to Qatar to restart stalled peace talks with Hamas aimed at bringing the war in Gaza to at least a temporary halt. Hamas has climbed down on key ceasefire demands following a series of setbacks. Thousands demonstrate in Tel Aviv against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, demanding immediate elections and measures for release of hostages. Anti-government demonstrators clash with police, with water cannons used to disperse them. Last day of the 3-day presidential elections in Russia today. Results expected late on Sunday night. Russia accuses Ukraine of using terror activities to disrupt the polls, terms demonstrators as traitors. US military says it has destroyed a drone fired by Yemeni Houthis over the Red Sea, with another presumed to have crashed. US Central Command also said it destroyed 5 unmanned surface vessels and 1 UAV in self-defense on Saturday in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. Yet another volcanic eruption in Iceland's peninsula. Lava and molten rock blast hundreds of feet into the air as the volcano erupts for the fourth time since December. State of emergency declared in the area. And our top focus in World DNA is from India. In his first reaction to the announcement of the schedule of the Indian elections 2024, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed confidence in the preparations of the Bharatiya Janata Party, while the opposition party highlighted the importance of fair and violence-free elections. Well, some did question the number of phases decided for the upcoming elections. The Indian Prime Minister took to social media and said that the biggest festival of democracy is here. We, the BJP NDA, are fully prepared for elections. We are going to the people on the basis of our track record of good governance and service delivery across all sectors. He further emphasized that the welfare schemes started by his government reached all parts of India and that the country is creating records in growth goals as well. While attacking the opposition INDIA bloc, Prime Minister Modi recounted the scams and policy paralysis and the issues that were seen during the previous regime. The opposition Congress, on the other hand, had mixed reactions. While Congress leader Pawan Khera called the elections not general and a test for democracy. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge expressed reservations about the 7-phase election schedule, stating that the 7 phases means nearly all work will be stopped. Take a listen.
But this is 7 means nearly all development work will be stopped. And stopping nearly 70-80 days means you imagine how the country will progress. Because election code of conduct, people will not move, material will not be supplied, budget will not be spent. Right. So this is a very, according to me, it's not good. He could have completed within.
The All India Trinamool Congress too objected to the 7-phase election in West Bengal. The party said that this kind of election setup will help the Bharatiya Janata Party to use its money power in the elections. Well, there were criticism regarding Maharashtra's 5-phase election schedule, with some questioning the rationale behind the decision, expressing concerns about potential fears or issues related to electronic voting machines. On the other hand, Shiv Sena leader Sanjay Raut welcomed the election schedule, affirming the readiness of the Maha Vikas Aghadi alliance. Meanwhile, the Indian Navy has successfully rescued yet another vessel from the clutches of the Somali pirates. The INS Kolkata successfully cornered and forced all the 35 pirates to surrender the MV Ruin ship that they had hijacked earlier. The Indian troops safely evacuated the 17 crew members from the vessel without any injury. The Indian Marine Commandos were a part of the daring mission missing where the ship MV Ruin was intercepted and freed almost 1,400 nautical miles from the Indian coast. Well, the pirates had boarded the vessel on December 14th. The ship had 18 crew on board when it was hijacked near the Yemeni island of Socotra, which is around 240 kilometers of Somalia. As a part of its anti-piracy operations, the Indian Navy units are currently deployed in the strategic waters in Djibouti, Gulf of Aden, and the east coast of Somalia. The Indian Navy has deployed 5 frontline guided missile destroyers in these strategic waters. Besides these, it has also stationed other naval assets for reconnaissance between Bab al-Mandab and the Indian coast. Well, Indian Navy's Boeing P-8I anti-submarine warfare aircraft and long-endurance Sea Guardian drone, they help keep the sea lanes of communications safe. Somali piracy incidents had dropped in recent years, but it has seen an uptick after the Houthis started targeting merchant vessels in the Red Sea. The US and the UK and its Western allies have deployed their navies mainly to contain the Houthis. The region, that is in India's vicinity, has become vulnerable to these attacks. And now shifting focus to continuous coverage of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Well, the head of Israeli intelligence, David Barnea, is reportedly attending fresh truce talks in Qatar. Mossad chief is likely to hold talks with Qatari Prime Minister and also Egyptian officials to fill in the remaining gaps in the Israel and Hamas's ceasefire deal. And this comes after Hamas abandoned key ceasefire demands following a series of setbacks in the ongoing war. Well, the talks will mark the first time that both Israel and Hamas would join indirect negotiations since the start of the holy month of Ramadan. Israel has adamantly ruled out a permanent ceasefire and insists that it will resume its declared goal of destroying Hamas. A diplomat familiar with ceasefire negotiations says efforts are moving in a positive direction, but they are not there yet. Meanwhile, opposition leader Yair Lapid reached the hostages' square. He later took to social media and said that no deal will be an easy one, but a deal that brings the hostages home is worth the price and will receive our full backing. There is no victory without them returning. We cannot move forward without them being home. Negotiators are still hopeful to attain a 6-week ceasefire in Gaza so that the humanitarian aid enters the war-torn territory. Well, the main UN agency operating in Gaza has already warned that acute malnutrition is rising more quickly in the north of the Gaza Strip. UNRWA has said that 1 in 3 children under the age of 2 in northern Gaza, they are now acutely malnourished. 5 months into the Gaza war, Israeli Prime Minister has now approved plans for the country's looming offensive in Rafah, where over 1 million Palestinians are situated. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who is on a 2-day visit to West Asia, has also voiced concerns about an assault on Rafah.
Wir haben eine schwierige Situation. Es ist notwendig, dass jetzt Hilfe in größerem Umfang nach Gaza gelangt. Das wird ein Thema sein, über das ich auch zu sprechen habe. Wir machen uns Sorgen über den weiteren Fortgang der militärischen Entwicklung. Insbesondere ist die Gefahr, dass bei einer umfassenden
Meanwhile, public anger mounts against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Thousands took to the streets of Tel Aviv to call for a deal to release the hostages held by Hamas, while anti-government demonstrators called for new elections in the country. In Tel Aviv, Israeli police used water cannons against demonstrators demanding the government's resignation. It was the 3rd Saturday in a row that they have used pressurized water spraying vehicle on the demonstrators who blocked a main road.
I think that someone in this government whom mostly none of them ever served, and they don't want it, they don't send any of their families to the army, they need to take us seriously, because we are not going to die or to be their ships. We want this government to take us seriously, to quit.
3 demonstrations took place simultaneously, and they were all aimed at the government. Well, families in Tel Aviv are focused on bringing home the remaining hostages.
We know that Hamas get answer to Israeli government, and we hope that soon as possible all the hostages will release, and we hope that Israel will agree with the Hamas offer, okay? And we know that tomorrow our head of Mossad travel to Doha, okay? Maybe there will negotiation, okay? And we hope soon as possible we get answer there is a new deal.
About 120 hostages were freed during a November ceasefire that also led to the release of hundreds of Palestinians from Israeli prisons. Now, while Israel is all set to join peace talks in Qatar, here is the latest in the ongoing war that's now into its 6th month. Well, starting with the Israeli forces who attacked the Nusret refugee camp, killing at least 36 people, mostly women and children. Well, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, the death toll in Gaza now stands at 31,553. Meanwhile, Hezbollah has claimed a 6th attack in its border war with Israel. According to the armed Lebanese group, the latest strike targeted an area near the border with rockets. According to Cyprus, a second ship loaded with aid for Gaza could depart soon. And according to U.S. charity World Central Kitchen, the vessel named Jennifer has been loaded with 240 tons of food. And this comes after an earlier vessel, which again went through the sea, reached Gaza and is on its way back. Moving on, there's rising pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from within his own country, with public anger rising and calls for action for the release of the hostages, and also anti-government demonstrators who clashed with the police on Saturday evening. They're also demanding for fresh elections in Israel. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has approved plans for an attack on Rafah, a ground invasion on Rafah where over 1.4 million displaced Palestinians have sought shelter. Well, that's the latest in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Moving on to other global stories. It is day 3 of voting in Russia's presidential polls today. And on the second day of voting on Saturday, the Russian Foreign Ministry said that Kiev had intensified its terror activities to tarnish the elections. And they've also vowed strong action. Our next report getting you complete picture. Take a look.
A Ukrainian missile struck the Russian border city of Belgorod on Saturday. This video released by Russian media outlet Ostoroshno Novsty shows plumes of smoke coming out from an apartment building. A separate drone strike also set an oil refinery on fire in Russia's Samara region. These Ukrainian attacks came on the second day of a Russian presidential election. Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Kiev of trying to disrupt. Russia's defense ministry said it had repelled attempts by Ukrainian forces to cross the border into Belgorod region, where attacks from Ukraine have become part of daily life. The governor there said schools and shopping centers would close for safety. Ukraine has staged repeated strikes this week on Russian soil, particularly targeting oil refineries. Russia mounted its deadliest attack in weeks on Friday, when its missiles hit a residential area in Ukraine's Black Sea port city of Odessa, killing scores of people. The Kremlin is hoping for a high election turnout to demonstrate that the country is united behind Putin. The election is all but certain to hand him 6 more years in the Kremlin. Putin's leading critics are in prison or have fled abroad, prompting the opposition to call the vote a sham. But overall turnout rose above 50% by the afternoon of day 2. Some of the highest rates approaching 70% were reported in the Belgorod region and in Russian-controlled regions of Ukraine, where Kiev says voting is illegal and void. Russia's governing party, United Russia, said on Saturday that it was facing a widespread denial of service attack a form of cyber attack aimed at paralyzing web traffic, and had suspended non-essential services to repel it.
In yet another incident of gun violence in the United States of America, a man who was alleged of shooting 3 people dead in Philadelphia on Saturday has now been arrested. Police say that he was taken into custody from a house in New Jersey where he had barricaded himself. We're talking about Andre Gordon Jr., who has been charged for 2 separate shootings in Falls Township and Buck County. Gordon is suspected of killing his 52-year-old stepmother, his 13-year-old sister, and the mother of his 2 children, 25-year-old Taylor Daniel. According to officials, another child, a 14-year-old, and the 3 who later died of bullet injuries hid inside his stepmother's house when he was searching the property. Gordon is also charged for using a rifle to brutally beat Daniel's mother. While she has rather sustained severe injuries, authorities claim that she is expected to survive. On Saturday morning, before the arrest, the police had ordered the residents of the Falls Township to take shelter inside their homes. The order was lifted shortly after the police arrested Gordon. The police said that Gordon also carjacked a person in an attempt to escape the arrest. Authorities have said that the shooter used a rifle styled after an AR-15. This rifle has been routinely used in mass shootings across the country. On to the world of business now, and news from the ongoing trial of former crypto king Sam Bankman-Fried. Prosecutors want Bankman-Fried to spend between 40 to 50 years in prison. Prosecutors pointed to his privileged upbringing and elite education as reasons for a harsh imprisonment. Federal prosecutors said that Bankman-Fried refused to admit what he did was wrong. But the former billionaire's lawyer, Mark Mukasey, told the court that a 5 to 6 year imprisonment would be appropriate. Bankman-Fried is scheduled for sentencing on March 28th and faces a maximum of 110 years in prison. Prosecutors wrote in a memorandum, and I'm quoting here, his life in recent years has been one of unmatched greed and quoting risk and gambling repeatedly with other people's money, unquote. Last November, a jury found Bankman-Fried guilty on 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy. The 32-year-old crypto founder was convicted for stealing $8 billion from customers from his now defunct crypto platform FTX. Bankman-Fried's lawyer claimed that FTX clients would get most of the money back, but prosecutors are seeking $11 billion to account for losses FTX's investors suffered as well. Now let's recap the FTX saga for our viewers here. The son of 2 Stanford Law School professors, Bankman-Fried worked on Wall Street before riding the crypto wave. At one point of time, his net worth was estimated at $26 billion. But his fortune evaporated in November 2022 when FTX declared bankruptcy after a wave of customer withdrawals. Later, a larger scandal emerged, as prosecutors argued that Bankman-Fried used customer funds to buy luxury real estate and to donate to the lawmakers. The 32-year-old MIT graduate was arrested in December 2022 in the Bahamas. Well, the Los Angeles home of model and actor Cara was destroyed in a fire. Cara shared several social media stories referring to the fire after it was reported that the house in the Studio City neighborhood that was engulfed in flames before dawn belonged to her. Well, Cara is currently appearing in a production of Cabaret on London's West End, and thereby she was not home. Firefighters arrived at the two-story house to find heavy fire in the rear, which destroyed a room and spread to the attic. Once a fire crew made certain that everyone was out of the house, they took a defensive position. She also appeared in the Hulu series Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin, Martin Short and Selena Gomez in 2022. And with that, we call it a wrap. Thanks very much for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. Do stay tuned.
On our show, we're privileged to meet all kinds of extraordinary business leaders, but honestly, I've never met one as Ankit Agarwal.
My father was in hospital. You will build a business which people will know on their own. So I think what my grandfather taught me and what I saw my father practicing stayed with me in life.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
This week on eClub, we look at the predictions by The Simpsons that ended up being true, and get you a list of all that happened at the 96th Academy Awards. We also tell you some rare facts about the Indian superstar Alia Bhatt as she turns a year older. With me, Alison Lagrange, at these times only on WION.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
This week on the West Asia Post, Ramadan has begun, but for Gazans, fasting has been replaced by starving. Biden-Netanyahu tensions are now on the public stage. Can there be a fallout soon? And Istanbul airport has a new attraction. There are now therapy partners to help calm those nerves. All this and much more. Catch the West Asia Post at these times, only on WION. World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
From New York, we get you to the sandy shores of Durban, where I'll bring you all the glitz, glam, and happenings from the world of showbiz.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One with me, Raisha Sehgal. There's lots lined up on the show, but first, the headlines. India now officially in election mode. Model code of conduct for political parties kicks in after Election Commission announces a 7-phase national election from April 19th to June 1st. Counting of votes on the 4th of June. Indian Navy to the rescue again. Indian Navy warship recaptures hijacked carrier MV Ruin from Somali pirates. Over a 40-hour operation, Indian Navy men corner and coerce all 35 pirates to surrender. Israeli negotiators, including the intel chief, are heading to Qatar to restart stalled peace talks with Hamas, aimed at bringing the war in Gaza to at least a temporary halt. Hamas has climbed down on key ceasefire demands following a series of setbacks. Thousands demonstrate in Tel Aviv against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, demanding immediate elections and measures for release of hostages. Anti-government demonstrators clash with police with water cannons used to disperse them. Last day of the 3-day presidential polls in Russia today. Results expected late on Sunday night. Russia accuses Ukraine of using terrorist activities to disrupt the polls, terms demonstrators as traitors. U.S. military says it has destroyed a drone fired by Yemeni Houthis over the Red Sea, with another presumed to have crashed. U.S. Central Command also said it destroyed 5 unmanned surface vessels and 1 UAV in self-defense on Saturday in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. In yet another volcanic eruption in Iceland's Reykjanes Peninsula, lava and molten rock blast hundreds of feet into the air as the volcano erupts for the 4th time since December. State of emergency declared in the area. Our top focus will be on right now. Head of Israeli intelligence